We now take leaders' questions under Standing Order 36. Deputy Mayor Lou McDonald, please.
Minister, the government's failure to plan for the recovery of Ireland's tourism sector has come home to roost in a fairly catastrophic fashion. Families are missing out on holidays because of long delays in issuing passports. Hotels now charge between 350 and 400 euros for one night. And now the state's main airport experiences chaos. Dublin Airport on Sunday was a nightmare for those caught up in the mayhem. People waited hours in queues that stretched outside the terminal buildings. Passengers received no communications, no updates or explanations for the delays. Indeed, many hadn't even made it to the security check before their flights took off without them. More than 1,000 people missed their flights. So big money had to be forked out for hotel rooms, connecting flights were missed, and would-be holiday makers had their holidays ruined. And now, confusion surrounding what any compensation package will cover sows further frustration. Minister, this isn't only about tourism and holidays. As you know, as a small island nation, we rely heavily on our airports to ensure our connectivity with the rest of the world, and we simply cannot afford this chaos. Last week's events at the airport risk damaging Ireland's international reputation for international business and investment. And all of this has its roots in the laying off of 1,000 workers by the Dublin Airport Authority during the pandemic, and the subsequent lack of workforce planning as international travel reopened. At the time of those layoffs, SIP2's Jerry Brennan told the Airport Authority, and let me quote him, "You will need to be hiring people because your queues will be extending through the car parks." What foresight? It seems he was the only person with any foresight. And yet, Dublin Airport, as we speak, is still only at 70% of pre-COVID staffing levels. Now, how can we expect the country's main airport to operate at such low staff levels at the busiest time of the year? Minister, it was entirely foreseeable after 2 years of lockdown that people would be very eager to get away on holidays again. So Sunday's chaos didn't come out of the blue. Indeed, there were warnings of major delays in March and April. So can you tell me what action, if any, did Minister Ryan take then to get ahead of all of this? Did he meet with the Airport Authority back in March to work out solutions and to prevent an escalation of the problem? Because he now calls for solutions in the wake of chaos. The Minister shows up again a day late and $1 short. Tep hubaisteach hevan rialtas agus an DAA maidir leis an próiseach umlán ag airfort bhailíocha clia an Downach. Ní hamháin go chuir sé is teach go mór taistálaí ach rinne sé duchar le cáil idirnáisiúnta na hÉireann. Ara an bhfuilmid ag súil le níos mó den cinál rúlia búlia in airfort bhailíocha clia an deire seachtainna seo. So, of course, the Dublin Airport Authority must be held responsible for its part in this mess. But let's be very clear. When the operation of the most important airport in the state breaks down, it is the business of government to get ahead of that. Minister, the public is in disbelief at this fiasco, and those now planning to travel through Dublin Airport this bank holiday weekend are now very, very worried. So my question to you is this. Can you today guarantee that we are not facing more chaos at Dublin Airport this weekend?
Thank you very much, Deputy McDonald, for raising what is such an important issue, and to state at the outset that the scenes we all witnessed on our screens at the weekend at Dublin Airport are completely unacceptable, and the passengers who were going through the airport should not have had to endure an experience like that. And I can only imagine distress and the anxiety and indeed the anger that was caused to so many of them, many of whom of course have been saving long and hard for a holiday, well earned, and in too many instances did not make their flight through absolutely no fault of their own. So what we saw was unacceptable, and it cannot be allowed to happen again. It is the case that the DAA has statutory responsibility for the running of Dublin Airport, but of course as a government we take a direct interest in this matter because of the impact it has on the people we represent and indeed on Ireland's reputation, both domestically and internationally, and the importance for us as an island nation of having international connectivity and having airports that are well run, are well resourced and that meet the needs of the people. These issues did begin to emerge, as you know, back in March, and there was significant political intervention at that point, which continued in particular by Minister Hildegard Naughton, who had very regular meetings, every second day in fact, for a period of time with the DAA to ensure that this issue was properly addressed. And to be fair, for the great bulk of that period of time, the issues were addressed, and the type of scenes that we witnessed at the weekend were not evident over that period of time. And since then, since the weekend, there was a meeting yesterday involving Minister Eamon Ryan, Minister Naughton, and indeed DAA senior management to express the government's deep frustration and unhappiness with the scenes that we witnessed at the weekend. There was a further meeting this morning whereby the DAA was asked to come forward with a plan, an operational plan, to ensure that we do not see scenes like this again, and in particular to provide a reassurance that the passengers who are going to Dublin Airport this coming weekend, in what's going to be a really busy weekend, the long weekend, that there are adequate resources in place to ensure that it runs as efficiently as possible. As you know, DAA senior management will appear before the Joint Oireachtas Transport Committee tomorrow, and the ministers have asked that the details of the operational plan would be conveyed publicly and would be discussed at that committee, and importantly that there would be an effective communications campaign so that the passengers who are relying on the services at Dublin Airport know exactly what is ahead of them and know precisely the amount of time that they should allow in order to safely get through the various stages of check-in, security and so on. You are correct to point out that there was a voluntary severance scheme operated by the DAA over the course of 2020 and into 2021, which was their judgment as to the resources that they would need for the period ahead. And it was also in the context of a period when passenger levels had simply collapsed and they were losing an enormous amount of money on a weekly basis. And they proposed a severance scheme, but they have now, in recent months, significantly recruited staff, and they've recruited several hundred staff. About 300 of the 370 additional security staff required have now been recruited, and about 170 of those are fully trained. And they've had more than 5,000 applications for the positions since the start of March. So it is important that the general public are given a reassurance that what we saw at the weekend does not happen again. The government has reinforced that message to the DAA directly, and the public will see tomorrow the details of what they are proposing operationally to ensure that it doesn't happen again.
Well, Minister, you say that there was a significant political intervention in March and April when these problems emerged. I have to tell you that intervention did not succeed in its purpose, and Sunday showed us the evidence of that. We have a situation, Minister, where the airport is still operating understaffed at 70% of its pre-COVID strength. We have a situation where the management, the Dublin Airport Authority, it seems to me, grossly misjudged what the capacity requirements would be as travel opened up again, as it would always be the case. And I have to say to you, I don't hear anything from you today as a minister in government which would reassure me or reassure the public that in fact the Airport Authority or the government have actually gotten on top of this issue. So can I ask you again to perhaps be more categoric and reassuring for the public? Can you tell us that we're not going to face scenes such as we saw on Sunday again? Are you satisfied that that is the case? Are you satisfied that the Airport Authority will mobilise, can mobilise the required numbers of staff, including full use of overtime in the coming bank holiday weekend?
Thank you, Deputy McDonald. I mean, the message from the government couldn't be clearer. The DAA needs to do whatever it takes to make sure that this issue is addressed and that we do not see those kind of scenes again, in particular on the forthcoming bank holiday weekend. And that is why Ministers Ryan and Naughton reinforced to the DAA executives the imperative of getting on top of this, because it's just not fair. It's not fair on the members of the public who rely on the services at the airport to go about their business, to travel abroad, to see loved ones, to return home after a trip to Ireland or to go on business abroad. You know, they should be assured that if they turn up in good time for their flight, that the airport will do its job and get them through the various stages and get them on board. So there was a detailed discussion today about what is required to ensure that that is achieved, measures to improve queue management, maximising the availability of staffing resources, to increase the number of security lanes at peak times. And the DAA are now finalising those operational arrangements, and we do expect to hear a lot more about them in the next 24 hours. And of course they will appear before the Joint Oireachtas Committee. But the message from government, as conveyed by the ministers today and as conveyed by me in the Dáil here today, could not be clearer. They must ensure that this is not repeated.
Thank you.